The city of Aeloria Prime gleamed like a crown of stars upon the endless sea. Towers of living crystal pierced the violet sky, each structure humming faintly with the breath of alien technology. At night, the waters reflected the light so perfectly that one could almost believe the city floated in a mirror world. It was a place of wealth, beauty, and power, where the elite thrived on privilege that stretched beyond imagination. And at the very heart of it all lived Lady Serava of the House Valeth, one of the richest beings in the quadrant. Her estate sprawled across islands sculpted from glassy stone, each one boasting gardens that sang with genetically tuned flora, servants bred to anticipate desires, and treasures collected from 100 worlds. Serava's name carried weight enough to make rivals tremble, and her fortune could buy entire colonies. Yet none of it brought her peace. Inside her mansion's great hall, silence lingered like an unwelcome guest. Though the walls glittered with mosaics and fountains whispered with flowing light, the atmosphere remained hollow. Serava, tall and elegant in her flowing silver attire, moved through her palace with the sharp precision of someone who lived by control alone. Her eyes, slits of pale gold, rarely softened, even when they turned toward the one being she loved more than herself. That being was her daughter, Liora. Liora lay on a levitating chair near the balcony, where she could at least feel the ocean breeze against her skin. She was beautiful like her mother, though her limbs were fragile and unresponsive. From birth, her body had refused to obey her spirit. She could not stand. She could not run. She could not even lift her own weight. And in a society that prized physical perfection and strength, this condition was seen as a shameful weakness. But Liora herself was not weak. Her voice carried a warmth that melted through the coldest days, and her laughter, rare as it was, lit brighter than any chandelier. She dreamed of things beyond her reach, of swimming in the open sea, of running through the glowing gardens, of standing tall beside her mother without needing the support of machines. Serava, despite her icy reputation, loved her daughter fiercely. She had spent fortunes hunting for cures. She had hired the galaxy's finest surgeons, commissioned experimental treatments, and even sought the forbidden sciences. None of it worked. Every time she hoped, every time she thought this might be the one, the results ended in disappointment. Over the years, Serava hardened her heart to shield herself from despair. To the public, she remained untouchable, a woman of flawless strength. But in the privacy of her halls, she carried the heaviest burden a mother could bear, the knowledge that all her power could not heal her child. On one quiet evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Serava stood at the balcony with her daughter. The waves below shimmered in gold and violet. Liora's eyes followed the horizon with quiet longing. "Mother," she said softly, "do you ever imagine me walking beside you?" Serava's throat tightened. She did not like such questions. They cracked the armor she wore around her heart. "Liora," she replied, her voice cool yet trembling beneath, "imagination will not change reality." "But," Liora whispered, "sometimes dreams feel more real than what we have." Serava turned away, hiding the flicker of pain across her face. Dreams were dangerous. They led to hope, and hope led to despair. She had learned long ago that hope was a poison, and yet when she glanced back at her daughter, her resolve wavered. Liora's eyes, so full of yearning, so full of light, were a mirror of everything Serava had lost in herself. The empire outside praised Serava's wealth. They feared her power, but none of it mattered in that quiet balcony moment, for in the hollow of her heart, where riches could not reach, Serava knew the truth. She would trade it all, every jewel, every palace, every ounce of influence, just to see her daughter take a single step. And so the stage was set. The wealthiest mother in Aeloria, surrounded by treasures without limit, sat beside her paralyzed child, haunted by a love she could not fulfill and a question that gnawed at her very soul. What good is power, if it cannot heal the one you love most? The weeks passed quietly on Aeloria, though beneath the city's polished surface there was a storm of whispers. Humanity had arrived. Their vessel was modest compared to the Leviathan ships of the alien houses, a slender craft of steel and ceramic, with no glowing spires or flowing architecture. To the elites of Aeloria it looked primitive, an insect among gods. Yet the humans had come with an offer: cooperation, medical exchange, the sharing of techniques that might help where advanced Aelorian science had failed. The council allowed them to land, but not without scorn. The wealthy scoffed at the idea that lesser beings might offer something valuable. Some called it arrogance, others called it desperation, and none mocked louder than Lady Serava. In the private dining halls of the elite, she sneered at the thought. Humans, she declared, her voice sharp as glass. A race that still bleeds from disease and fractures bones like children? What could they possibly know of medicine that we do not? The others laughed with her, though behind their masks of agreement lurked curiosity. After all, humans had a reputation, not for superiority, but for stubbornness, for survival, for clinging to life where no other species would endure. Serava dismissed it as rumor, yet her daughter had heard, and she listened with a heart always hungry for possibility. That evening, in the quiet of her chambers, Liora spoke to her mother. "They say the humans heal not only with machines," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement, "but with spirit. They treat the mind and the body together. Please let them try." Serava stiffened. She stood near the balcony, her silhouette framed against the ocean dusk. "Child, you do not understand. They are desperate creatures. They use stories and songs where we use precision and power. It is crude. But I want to believe in crude things," Liora replied, her eyes bright. "I want to try. Even if it fails, at least I will know they tried differently." For a long moment, Serava said nothing. Her pride fought against her fear. She had hired the galaxy's finest. How could she now lower herself to beg help from primitives? Yet she saw her daughter's trembling hands clutching the chair's edges. Her voice filled with a hope Serava had not heard in years. Against her will, her walls began to crack. The very next day, Dr. Elias Rowan was brought to the estate. He was not what Serava expected. She anticipated a brash figure, loud and self-assured. Instead, Elias was quiet, his features lined by experience rather than age. His eyes, human eyes, soft and storm gray, studied Liora with more gentleness than most nobles would give a child of their own blood. "Lady Serava," he said with a respectful bow, "thank you for allowing me into your home. I cannot promise miracles, but I can promise I will try with all I am." His words annoyed her. Too humble, too earnest. Aelorian doctors always spoke in absolutes, cloaked in certainty. Yet something in his tone unsettled her, for it was not arrogance nor desperation. It was belief. She allowed the session to begin, standing at the edge of the chamber with arms folded. Elias did not flood Liora with machines or needles. Instead, he knelt beside her, speaking softly, asking her to imagine movement, to describe how it would feel to take a step. He told her stories of Earth, of children learning to walk across grassy fields, of songs sung by parents to steady uncertain feet. Liora's laughter rang out, fragile but real, and the sound pierced Serava's heart like a blade. Her daughter rarely laughed, not since the failures had piled upon her shoulders, yet here she was smiling at this human stranger, as if light itself had entered the room. Serava's jaw tightened. She would not show weakness. She told herself it was meaningless, a child's fleeting amusement. Still, she found her gaze drawn to Elias, to the quiet conviction in his eyes. When the session ended, Elias rose and bowed again. "It will be slow," he said, "and it will be hard, but I believe in her. That is where healing begins." Serava said nothing. She dismissed him with a cold wave of her hand, but when he left, her thoughts were restless. For all her wealth and science, no one had ever spoken of belief. No one had looked at her daughter not as a patient, not as a burden, but as a girl who might yet stand. And for the first time, Lady Serava felt something dangerous stir in her chest. Not hope, not yet, but the echo of it. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm unlike anything Lady Serava had known. Humans were clumsy with their manners and unimpressive in their science, or so she kept reminding herself. Yet each dawn, the human doctor returned to her estate with the same steady presence, unshaken by her cold stares or sharp remarks. Dr. Elias Rowan had a way of entering a room without demanding attention. He simply carried it with him, as if it followed in the quiet certainty of his steps. For Liora, his presence became a spark of light in the long gray corridors of her life. Their sessions were unlike anything the Aelorian healers had attempted. Instead of surrounding her with humming machines and sterile commands, Elias asked her to imagine. He spoke of rivers on Earth where children played barefoot, of hills that rolled like emerald waves, of the scent of rain falling on warm soil. "Close your eyes," he would say gently. "Picture yourself walking there, not as you are now, but as you wish to be. Each step is a promise your body wants to remember." At first, Serava scoffed. She stood in the corner, her arms folded like armor, thinking it foolish. Child's play dressed as medicine. Yet when she saw her daughter's eyes shine with life, when she heard the laughter echo through chambers that had long been silent, something within her shifted. Liora tried. Her fingers twitched, her muscles quivered, her voice sang with effort. And though her steps did not come, the room felt charged, as if possibility itself had entered. After one such session, Liora whispered to Elias, "Why do you believe so much in me?" Elias smiled faintly, adjusting the medical band at her wrist. "Because humanity has survived things we were never meant to survive. We are fragile, easily broken, yet we endure. I see that same fire in you, Liora, and I believe in it." From her post near the balcony, Serava felt her throat tighten. Fragile, yet enduring. Was that not her daughter in every sense? But Serava did not speak her thoughts. Instead, she cut into the moment with her usual blade-edged tone. "Belief is not medicine. Hope will not mend nerves." Elias did not flinch. He met her gaze with calm steadiness. "Perhaps not. But despair poisons faster than any disease. You've given her everything wealth can buy. Let me give her what it cannot." The words struck deeper than Serava expected. She masked it with silence, turning away so neither of them would see the turmoil in her eyes. Days grew into weeks, and with each session, Liora's body responded in small, delicate ways. A twitch of the ankle, a finger clenching where before there was nothing. Progress so slight the alien physicians would have dismissed it as meaningless. Yet for Liora, they were treasures. One evening, as Serava stood watching, Elias began singing softly. It was a human song, slow, unfamiliar, but filled with warmth. The tones were uneven compared to Aelorian harmonics, but it carried something raw and unpolished, like the voice of the sea itself. Liora joined him with laughter, trying to mimic the sounds, and Serava felt her defenses crack. She had built her life on order, control, and perfection. Yet here, in her own home, her daughter was glowing with joy brought not by science but by stories and song. That night, after Elias had gone, Serava sat beside Liora's chamber. The girl had fallen asleep with a smile on her lips, her hands twitching faintly as though dreaming of walking. For hours, Serava stared at her child, struggling with feelings she had long locked away. The humans were unrefined, imperfect, lesser in nearly every measure. And yet Elias Rowan had given her daughter something no Aelorian physician had ever managed: the will to hope. Serava's pride recoiled, demanding she dismiss it all as nonsense. But her heart whispered otherwise. She told herself she would tolerate the human a while longer just to see. Nothing more. Yet deep down she already knew the truth. This fragile man had lit a spark in her daughter, and perhaps, against her will, in her own soul. Progress came in whispers, tiny victories that to outsiders might seem invisible. A finger flexing, a flicker in the toes, muscles twitching when once they lay still. To Liora they were steps toward the dream that filled her heart. To Dr. Elias Rowan, they were proof that belief and patience could awaken even the quietest nerves. To Lady Serava, however, each change was a blade cutting deeper into her guarded soul. For the first time in years, she dared to imagine her daughter walking. And with imagination came fear. Fear that this fragile hope might shatter. The shattering came sooner than expected. One morning, Elias encouraged Liora to sit upright for longer than before. She laughed with the effort, her face radiant, but then her body jerked violently. Her eyes widened with pain. The chair's alarms shrieked. Her limbs spasmed before falling limp. "Mother," she gasped weakly, her voice cracking. Serava's heart froze. She rushed forward, catching her daughter's trembling hands. For all her composure, her voice broke as she shouted, "What have you done?" Elias was already at Liora's side, his hands steady despite the chaos. He worked quickly to stabilize her, murmuring reassurance in a voice calm as still water. Yet the alarms did not quiet at once. When at last the tremors faded, Liora was left pale and exhausted, her breath shallow. Serava clutched her child to her chest, her composure collapsing in the face of terror. By then, the alien physicians had arrived, Summoned by the house's security systems, they examined the readings with cold efficiency, their expressions grim. This human experiment is reckless, one declared. He is overexerting her fragile system. Another attempt could sever what little function remains. You risk permanent collapse, another hissed, their voice sharp with accusation. Is this what humanity calls healing? Gambling with a child's life? Serava's fury boiled. She rounded on Elias, her golden eyes blazing. You swore to help her, and now she suffers more than before. Leave. Leave this house at once before I cast you into the sea. Elias did not argue. He lowered his head, his jaw set tight, his hands clenched against the weight of her words. For a moment he seemed ready to speak, but her gaze allowed no room for defense. He bowed stiffly and stepped back, his voice quiet but firm. I will go, but know this, she is closer than she has ever been. Do not mistake struggle for failure. Serava turned away, unwilling to listen. She carried Liora to her chamber, her arms trembling with the effort of holding her daughter's limp form. That night, silence hung over the palace, heavier than stone. Liora lay weak in her bed, her eyes fluttering open only occasionally. Serava sat beside her, stroking her hair, whispering soft promises no one else would ever hear. At last, Liora's lips parted. Her voice was barely a breath. Mother, don't send him away. Serava froze. He endangered you. He nearly destroyed you. I will not see you suffer again. But Liora's eyes, tired yet burning with quiet fire, met her mother's. No, Mother. He believes in me. Even when you don't, that is why I fight so hard. Please, don't take that away. The words pierced deeper than any blade. For all her wealth, Serava had never been accused of lacking belief. She had commanded empires, toppled rivals, and conquered the marketplace of worlds. Yet her daughter, the one life she cherished most, saw her as faithless. When Liora drifted into sleep again, Serava remained by her side, staring into the shadows. Her heart warred with itself. Her pride screamed that she was right, that humans were dangerous, reckless beneath her people. But her daughter's words echoed endlessly. He believes in me, even when you don't. For the first time in years, Serava wondered if she had indeed failed. Not as a healer, not as a provider, but as a mother. And in the quiet of that night, she realized something she could not admit aloud. Sending Elias away had not silenced the hope he had awakened. It had only made her see how deeply her soul feared losing it. The days after Elias's dismissal were heavy with silence. The estate's halls seemed emptier, the air colder. Liora asked for him in whispers, but Serava deflected, speaking of rest and recovery, of physicians who would soon bring balance back to her body. Yet even as she said the words, Serava felt them ring hollow. One evening, Serava stood at the balcony watching the endless sweep of the ocean below. The horizon glowed faintly as twin moons rose, silver light spilling across the waves. Her heart ached in ways she refused to name. She told herself she had done the right thing. She had protected her daughter. Yet beneath the armor of her logic, she felt the gnawing bite of doubt. That was when a voice spoke from the shadows. You still don't trust me, do you? Serava spun, her hand flashing to the jeweled dagger at her waist. From the shadow of a pillar, Dr. Elias Rowan stepped into the moonlight. He carried no weapons, only a satchel slung across his shoulder, and a quiet determination in his storm-gray eyes. You dare return? Serava hissed. Do you have a death wish? I have a promise, Elias replied softly. One I made to your daughter. I told her I would not give up on her. I meant it, Serava's chest tightened. Her instincts screamed to call the guards, to drive him out. Yet she hesitated. For all her anger, for all her pride, there was something disarming in his calmness. You risk much, she said coldly. If the council learns you trespassed here, they will expel your kind. Or worse, then let them, Elias answered. If keeping my word cost me everything, so be it. But tell me, Lady Serava, what has all your wealth bought you? Power, fear, respect? Can it buy your daughter's joy? The words struck like lightning. She hated him for saying them, yet part of her longed to hear them. Her hand trembled against the dagger hilt before she finally let it fall. They stood in silence, the ocean's breath between them. At last Serava spoke, her voice low, almost breaking. You think me heartless, but you do not know what it is to hope 1,000 times, only to be shattered each time more cruelly than the last. Elias stepped closer, his tone gentle. You're right. I don't know your pain, but I know this, your daughter still dreams. She hasn't given up. Why should you? The words clawed past the wall she had built around her heart. For years she had hidden behind her mask of strength, believing that showing softness would only deepen the wound. Yet Elias saw through it with unnerving clarity. For the first time in decades, Serava spoke honestly. I fear that I am not enough for her, that I am failing her not because I lack power, but because I lack faith. Elias's gaze softened. Then borrow mine. Let me carry the faith until you're ready. That's what it means to fight together. Something shifted between them then, something fragile but undeniable. The air thickened, charged with more than unspoken words. Serava's breath caught, surprised by the warmth that stirred in her chest. Not anger, not fear, but something she had not allowed herself in years. Trust. For a moment, under the glow of the moons, she saw him not as a primitive outsider, but as a man who had crossed galaxies not for profit or power, but for the chance to heal. Their eyes lingered longer than either intended. It was not love, not yet, but the first dangerous spark of it, an understanding that frightened her more than any enemy. At last, Serava turned away, breaking the silence with a whisper. If you are caught here, both our lives will unravel. Leave now. And yet, her voice faltered before she steadied it. Return tomorrow night. We will speak again. Elias bowed, not as a servant but as an equal. Until then, Lady Serava. As he disappeared into the shadows, Serava stood alone, her heart pounding. She told herself she invited him back only for her daughter's sake. Yet deep inside she knew the truth. Something in her soul had begun to awaken, stirred by a human who dared to believe in what she no longer could. The nights of secret meetings stretched on, each one chipping away at the distance between Lady Serava and Dr. Elias Rowan. They spoke less of medicine and more of life, about Earth's endless skies, about Aeloria's crystal seas, about dreams neither of them admitted to others. In those hushed hours, Serava felt something dangerous yet exhilarating. She was no longer alone in her battle. Yet beneath the quiet growth of trust, the truth remained. Liora was still bound to her chair, her fragile body yielding only flickers of progress. Every twitch was celebrated, but weeks passed, and steps still felt like a fantasy. Until one night. The estate was quiet, servants dismissed, the ocean's breath filling the halls with its eternal rhythm. Elias prepared Liora for another session, his hands steady as he adjusted the slender supports around her legs. Serava stood at the edge of the chamber, watching, her arms folded as always, though her eyes betrayed a hunger for hope. Tonight, Elias said softly, his gaze fixed on Liora, we'll try something different. Not just imagining, not just twitching. Tonight we try standing. Liora's breath caught. Her pale fingers clutched the railing beside her chair. Standing? She whispered. Elias nodded. I'll be with you. Every second. You're ready. Serava's heart hammered against her ribs. This is madness, she said sharply. She could collapse again. Elias met her gaze without flinching. Yes, or she could rise. The words hung heavy in the air as if the moons themselves leaned in to listen. Slowly, trembling, Liora let Elias lift her from the chair. Her legs dangled, fragile as glass, before he guided her feet onto the polished floor. She gasped at the pressure of weight, something she had never felt before. Breathe, Elias whispered. Feel the ground. It's yours. Serava found herself clutching the edge of a crystal table, unable to move, her golden eyes fixed on her daughter. One hand at a time, Liora gripped the railing. Her arms shook violently, her knees threatening to buckle. Yet Elias steadied her, his voice low, constant, like a beacon. One breath. One heartbeat. You are not broken. You are stronger than you know. For a moment, everything was still. Then, Liora's legs quivered, her body swaying, yet instead of falling, she caught herself. She stood. Serava's breath left her in a silent cry. Elias did not stop there. Now one step, just one. Nothing more. Liora's lips trembled, tears welling in her eyes. She shifted her weight forward, her foot dragging, then planting on the floor. Her first step. A sound escaped her throat, not pain but laughter, wild and disbelieving. It was at that moment that Serava entered the chamber fully, a tray of delicacies in her hands, brought for once not by servants but by herself. She froze at the sight before her. Her daughter, her frail, paralyzed daughter, stood upright, leaning against the railing, her face glowing with triumph. The tray slipped from Serava's hands. Crystal shattered against the floor. fruit scattering like jewels. The sharp sound echoed through the hall, but neither Liora nor Elias flinched. They were too lost in the miracle unfolding between them. Serava staggered forward, her composure crumbling. She sank to her knees before her daughter, trembling as tears, real tears, slipped down her face. Liora. Her voice was raw, unrecognizable even to herself. You're standing. Leora's hands shook as she reached toward her mother. I told you, Mother. I just needed someone to believe. Serava pulled her close, holding her daughter as though she feared the universe might snatch her away. Her silken robe soaked with tears she no longer cared to hide. Elias stepped back, his eyes shining with quiet pride, but he did not speak. This was not his moment. It was theirs. For Serava, the world shifted that night. Wealth, titles, power, none of it mattered. A shattered plate, a broken mask, and her daughter's first step had shown her the one truth she had long denied. Hope was not weakness. It was the strongest force in existence, and in that impossible night she knew her life and her heart would never be the same. The news spread faster than Serava could contain it. Servants whispered of the impossible. Guards muttered in awe. By dawn, the city of Aeloria Prime buzzed with the tale. Lady Serava's paralyzed daughter had walked, under the care of a human. At first it was disbelief. Then fear. The alien elite had built their empire upon mastery of medicine, selling cures to the galaxy at impossible prices. If humans could achieve what Aeloria's finest physicians had failed to, the balance of power would shift. Pride turned quickly into outrage. By the second day, the Council of Houses convened. Behind their jeweled masks, their voices hissed like serpents. Blasphemy, one elder snarled. This human trick endangers our sovereignty. If we allow their crude methods to spread, who will come to us for healing? Another hissed. They must be expelled, declared a third. For the safety of Aeloria, and for the dignity of our kind. Serava stood before them, her daughter's triumph burning bright in her heart. For the first time in years, she did not lower her eyes before her peers. You speak of dignity while you tremble at the thought of a single child's step? If your science is so mighty, why did it fail her? Humanity succeeded where you did not. The chamber rippled with shock. To defend humans publicly was unthinkable. But Serava no longer cared. That night, danger followed. Her estate was surrounded by silent watchers, drones of rival houses. Her staff warned her. The council would not rest until the humans were cast out, perhaps destroyed. In the midst of it, Elias remained. Though he had every reason to flee, he stayed by Liora's side, ready to protect her progress at any cost. You should leave, Serava told him sharply as they stood on the balcony, the ocean winds heavy with tension. The council will crush you. They will crush all of your kind. Go now while you can. But Elias shook his head. His voice was quiet, steady. And leave you to face this alone? No, you once asked what wealth has given you. I ask you now, what has fear given you? You taught me what it means to fight for someone beyond yourself. I will not walk away. Her breath caught, though she tried to mask it with disdain. You're a fool. Perhaps, he admitted, a wry smile tugging at his lips. But a fool who keeps his promises. The words settled between them, dangerous and tender. Serava felt her defenses falter. She turned away, afraid he might see the heat in her eyes. Yet her voice betrayed her. You risk your life for a daughter not your own. For a people who mock you, why? Elias stepped closer, his gaze steady. Because I believe in her. And because I believe in you. The world seemed to still. Serava's breath trembled. For a moment she saw herself not as the untouchable Lady Valeth, but as a woman who longed for connection. For something wealth had never given her. Before she could answer, the silence shattered. Explosions rattled the lower walls. Rival houses had made their move. An armed strike meant to drag the humans away, to erase the threat before it spread. Guards clashed with intruders outside. The estate filled with the roar of weapons, the hiss of energy shields. Serava seized Elias's arm, her voice fierce. Stay close. They will not take her. Together they raced through the corridors. Liora shielded in her chair, her wide eyes flicking between her mother and the human doctor who refused to leave her side. For the first time, Serava fought not as a business magnate, but as a mother stripped of all pretense. Her wealth became her weapon. Security drones she had once purchased for vanity now unleashed in defense of her daughter. In the chaos, Serava realized something stunning. She was no longer fighting alone. Elias moved beside her, fearless, his hands steady even as danger closed in. He was not her equal in wealth or power, but in courage, he matched her stride for stride. And amid the smoke and the fire, a truth crystallized within her. She was no longer afraid. Not of hope, not of love, not of survival. Together, she and Elias would stand against the world itself. The battle at Lady Serava's estate burned through the night. Sparks from shattered drones rained like fireflies across marble floors, and smoke curled up through vaulted crystal halls. But in the end, the attackers fell back. Her guards, her machines, and most of all, her resolve had held them at bay. When the last intruder fled into the night, silence returned. Serava stood at the heart of her ruined hall, her silken robes torn, her golden eyes blazing with fury and something stronger still. Triumph. At her side stood Elias Rowan, weary yet unbroken, his shirt torn where a beam had grazed him. And between them sat Liora, exhausted but smiling as if even the storm had not stolen the light she carried within. For once, Serava did not care about the shattered mosaics or the ruined gardens. Let the world see her palace in ashes. What mattered had survived. The very next day, the Council of Houses summoned her. Their chamber gleamed with pomp and menace, their voices dripping with outrage. "You have endangered us all," one elder thundered. "By defending the humans, you have undermined centuries of power. Your daughter's so-called miracle threatens our empire," another spat. "If humans can heal the unhealable, why should anyone come to us?" Serava stood tall, her robes plain compared to their jeweled attire, but her presence filled the chamber. "You fear them not because they are weak, but because they are strong where you are blind. You mock their fragility, yet their hearts endure what your science cannot. Humanity gave my daughter what your arrogance denied her: hope." The chamber erupted in gasps. None had ever heard Serava speak with such passion. She was known as a woman of cold calculation, yet now she burned with fire. "You call it weakness," she continued, her voice echoing through the hall. "I call it love, and love will outlast your pride." The council tried to shout her down, but the truth had already cracked their fortress of certainty. Witnesses whispered. Servants carried the story beyond those jeweled walls. And across Aeloria, the people began to murmur. Perhaps humanity was not primitive after all. Perhaps their strength lay not in machines, but in the one thing no empire could buy: faith. When Serava returned home, she found Elias tending to Liora in the garden, sunlight spilling across them both. For the first time in her life, Serava felt a strange calm, not the brittle calm of control, but the tender calm of belonging. "You stayed," she said quietly, approaching him. Elias looked up, smiling faintly. Of course. Her heart wavered. She had faced rivals, wars, and storms of politics without blinking. But now her voice trembled. "I have spent my life building walls, but you break them down with nothing but words, with nothing but belief. And she faltered, golden eyes shimmering. "I do not know if I can be strong enough to let this continue." Elias rose, stepping closer. "Strength isn't the absence of fear, Serava. It's choosing to love despite it." The silence between them pulsed with unspoken truth. For the first time, Serava allowed her mask to fall completely. No wealth, no titles, just a mother, a woman, a soul reaching for another. When Elias's hand brushed hers, she did not pull away. In the weeks that followed, change spread. Humanity was no longer treated as a curiosity, but as partners. Aelorian physicians grudgingly studied alongside human healers, blending precision with compassion. And at the center of it all walked Liora, step by trembling step, a living symbol of what was possible when love and belief joined hands. On the evening of her first public walk, the city gathered in awe. As she crossed the plaza, leaning on her railing but smiling brightly, Serava walked at her side and Elias followed close behind. The people cheered, their voices rising like the ocean tide. And in that moment, Lady Serava knew the truth she had once denied. Wealth had never been her treasure. Power had never been her crown. Her true fortune was here, in the fragile miracle of her daughter's steps, in the stubborn hope of a human doctor, and in the love that had risen from the ashes of despair. As the crowd roared and the moons bathed the city in silver light, Serava whispered words only Elias could hear. "You gave me what all my riches could not, and for that I am yours." And for the first time, Lady Serava did not fear the dawn, for the dawn now carried hope.